Thank you for joining us today. Again, as always, but especially today, I'm really excited about our guest. Now, Pathway to Kinship is one of our collaborative partners. So this is a new episode in that we get to talk to somebody who knows GOGI very well, but who is actually promoting GOGI through his programming. So I want you to kind of get a feel for what that's like. So stay tuned. It's going to be exciting. And maybe it'll inspire you to connect and make some collaborations with GOGI as well. We'll see. I think you'll enjoy. Okay, Mark Vahanian.
Good morning.
I am so happy and just thrilled. You're a busy man. In fact, every time I talk to you on the phone, you're driving from one prison to the next. Why is that? Why are you driving to so many prisons? Why do you spend, and I know the feeling, hundreds of thousands of miles on your car going from one prison to the next? Why is that?
Wow. Why? It's all I can say is they, and thus opportunity to be of service to these folks saved my life. And before I say more, I want you to know that this morning I was leading a virtual group with 60 to 70 former lifers. And I mentioned, I'll be speaking to Coach Taylor this morning. And I hear 3-second light switch, belly breathing. and my experience is every prison I go into, no matter where it is, on every yard, when I get to part of our curriculum and we're talking about poise and triggers, and everybody knows you, they know your work, they love GOGI. I've had one person after another say to me, GOGI is my favorite. So that's just real.
Well, I absolutely love hearing that. And for many individuals, GOGI is the foundation that they can build upon in whatever direction they care to go in, whether that it's a religious direction or a philanthropic direction, whatever direction, or educational or whatever. GOGI seems to be, and I don't know, maybe you can tell me what you think, seems to be the missing link that individuals missed in their childhood. They did not get this basic training about positive decision making. It seems to me that if you have a room of 60 lifers and they're chiming out the GOGI life tools, that something in our educational system is grossly inadequate in preparing individuals to make positive decisions. Would you agree with that? And can you talk to me about what your thoughts are?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and it's tragic because I want to say everybody I work with in 10 prisons, their childhood was lacking in that kind of clear, positive, emotional literacy, emotional understanding, and a positive sense of self, and the ability to self-regulate. So clearly the GOGI tools are fundamental in that. And also when people slow down and chill, then they're also able to start taking in and looking at some of the difficult things, like our course on critical insight is not a fun. It's not a fun process because you're looking at what you did to get here and why. And I find that, the tools help us to self-regulate and ease up on some of the shame and some of the things that make it so hard so that when we identify with what we've done, and then we're able to stop identifying with what we've done and go, I did those things, I'm not those things. And again, the tools are beautifully integrated into our work at Pathway to Kinship. I've given out hundreds of your books, and always well received. It's always a gift, right, to be given one of your books. And and it works just very well with all the work that we're doing.
Mark, I have a problem here because we don't have forever together to talk, but there are so many different nuances of who you are, your and my friendship, our collaboration, Gogi Life Tools, Pathway to Kinship, the instruction that you are providing, your training of leaders, moving into providing housing or preparing that. There are just so many subjects that I kind of want to preface our time together by saying, can we do this again?
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And in terms of housing, I can mention Tools for Tomorrow, which is another collaboration with Chris Waddell and his team. And we have reentry programs available in Whittier right now. And I would be remiss in not mentioning our course on EDOVO. Right now, we have a course called Criminal Impulsivity. Highly recommend it. There are thousands of people have gone through it and love it. And you made a nice introduction into EDOVO for us, and we'll be putting up some more courses.
So, because so much of our audience is on tablets in thousands of prisons and jails, speak to a little bit more about how they can find your course on the prison tablets. What does the icon look like? Because I do want to make certain that is such a necessary subject matter. Talk to me a little bit more about what does it look like? Where do they find it on their tablets?
I wish I could describe it more clearly, but all I know is if they look up Criminal Impulsivity and Pathway to Kinship on the EDOVO tablet, they will find it. Criminal Impulsivity, Pathway to Kinship.
Great. I love that. And as of course, they will get a certificate through the tablet provider of their completion of the course.
Yes. More to come.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I love our collaboration. Can you talk to me for a moment about how you and I met and what were the first things that you were hearing about GOGI? And then you actually assisted us in a very critical time when we had no funding. You helped us get some very critical funding when we were struggling. Can you talk to me a little bit about your history with GOGI? When did you first hear about it? What were your thoughts? And then how did we become as good collaborative friends as we are?
The very first of all, I was brought into the prisons the first time by Sister Mary Shawn and Sister Mary Shawn Hodges. And as soon as I was doing anything in the prisons, I heard about GOGI. Sorry for that interruption. Yes, I heard about GOGI right away. The men, so many of them talked about you. Our mutual student, Chris, who's now been found suitable after 30 odd years. And the men were so receptive to that work. And it seemed that what we're doing with Pathway to Kinship is just a good fit. We work well together. And I don't even remember who the first person was who actually made the introduction to you and I, but I know that right away, we just had this natural connection. And there were people who'd been through our course and had done GOGI as well. And then I met Johnny and that's all I remember. I know that it's been everywhere I go, I hear GOGI, and it's just a nice, it integrates beautifully, a good blend with what we're doing.
Talk to me about what would inspire you to actually go into a prison. What was that? Why did you meet with Sister Mary? Why did you say, yes, I'll go into a prison? Why did you say, oh, this strikes a chord with me and it's important for me? What was that journey like?
So it was an evolution. Do I have 90 seconds?
You have got more than 90 seconds. It's interesting.
So I had 3 careers prior to doing anything to do with prisons. I had been an actor and been on Broadway. And I say 3 careers brought me to Hawaii. First career was as an actor. And then when that career started to slide downhill, I got brought to Hawaii by Stevie Nicks and Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac to help get them in shape for a tour. And I worked with all kinds of really interesting people. Johnny Cochran, the attorney for OJ, I worked with him for 15 years as his fitness coach. Then I explored executive coaching and leadership work and studied a lot around trauma resolution. And when the dot-com bubble burst, I found an entranceway into the financial services world, and Morgan Stanley flew me to Hawaii to work with 200 financial advisors. Now, for full disclosure, I also at that point had started drinking, and my wife, and this may come as a surprise, was none too thrilled. And so I got into a 12-step program, and it was there in desperation for looking for some way out of my own selfishness and misery. I discovered ways to be of service, and I just started volunteering in and around the program. But I found Father Greg Boyle and Homeboy Industries, and I volunteered there, and I volunteered at ARC, and then I met Sister Miriam Prep. And so, again, it was through looking for a way to get my attention off myself and to utilize the skills and experiences I'd had. And I think a combination, I guess I'd also have to include my parents, both who were psychologists and both were from genocide. My mother came from the Holocaust and escaped in 1939. My father's family got out of Armenia. So I think in my background and in my DNA was this thing around a recognition of injustice and horror and my own. I grew up near the edge of Harlem. It was a very scary time. And I think all of that merged, and I just began to find a way to put all those skills and experience into service, helping people do job interviews. And then when I got into prison with Sister Mary, I just blew my mind open and my heart open. And I began evolving and cultivating a curriculum with the help of the men inside and the women. We're also at CCWF, and it's been an extraordinary journey.
Well, there's so many, I don't even know how to process what you just told me. There are like 14 lifetimes that you just talked about. There's like so many different lifetimes in this one lifetime. Where do you see your life in 5 years or 10 years? Certainly you have all of this generational trauma. You've got, the career trauma, and here you are. What does life look like in 5 or 10 years for you?
So, without being morbid, first of all, I'll say I'm going to be 70, and in just a few months, and I look at 10 years and I go, I might not be here. So one thing that's important to me is to make sure we have a succession plan, which we're working on, but we don't have it in place. I want to make sure Pathway to Kinship continues. We've got a great team, but we need to hone this in such a way that this continues and that, we have now 10 employees. Everybody's got health care. Everybody is formally incarcerated, except for me so far. I always say there's always time. And we have 10 part-time employees, and we've got a barber program, the housing program with, it's a very exciting time, but I don't have all those answers. I'm not sure where, I'm trying to be realistic. My mom died at 73. My dad died at 82. So if we divide the difference, 5 years might be it.
Yes, I see. And
I'm just trying to be real here. It's like,
I get it. And one thing I love about you is your transparency and your honesty. And I think you and I probably have learned the value of that in prison, because you can't really talk in circles. When you are in prison, you really need to be a person of your word. You really need to speak with certain levels of integrity to survive. It's survival in there. And I get it. Legacy and sustainability is your focus now. But, I know I'm 67 now. You're going to turn 70 this year. Legacy is important, but it's even important to youngsters. A young kid who enters the prison system at 18 and he's got 30 years to do, they always write and talk about legacy and wanting their life to mean more than what their actions were when they were 16 and put on trial. So I think this concept of legacy is not specific to age. I think it's specific to the human experience. It comes into focus as we get older, but I think we are, as beings, we thrive on being of service. I think that's where our heart beats with peace. That's where our sleep is restful. That's where our communication is honest. Would you say that being of service, and certainly Pathway to Kinship is all about service, has been like the capstone of these 15 different lives that you've lived? Is now kind of like, for me, it feels like now is the icing on the cake, where GOGI is going to live 300 years past my lifetime. That's kind of like the icing on the cake. Would you say that service is kind of like the icing on your cake?
I would say it's the blood in my veins. It's the
That's
thing
even better.
that by being of service is what's central for me to having a life of meaning and purpose. And I'm so grateful that I've found things that I can do that have an impact. And you mentioned the young people. And one of the things I want to make sure we put time and energy into over the next 5 years for sure, we've got young people who are serving LWOP, and that's ridiculous. And so, I mean, I know young men and women that have a college education now, thanks to CDRC, but they need to come home. And so I think that's one place that I really to keep bringing hope, that just because it says life without possibility of parole doesn't mean that that's a fact. And so I know.
Is that like a focus on merit-based incarceration, merit-based sentencing?
Yeah. And I think that's a beautifully well said. And I just see such potential for so many people, and it shouldn't be wasted by now. The good news is they're also being of service to others. I've got an LWOP who's a peer literacy mentor, and others who are doing an OMCP. They're doing things to make a life of purpose, and it's inspiring. But yeah, I want to see some of these folks come home, as many as possible.
We have maybe 10 minutes together. What of the vast number of subjects that you and I have in common or can talk about, what do you think is the most important message to get to possibly a million eyeballs or sets of ears that will hear this over the next several months or even a year? What's the most important message you would like to share to those individuals who've listened so far and say, wow, that guy, he's been through a lot. I can resonate with some of his experiences. What would you like to share with individuals?
I think at the most simple and potent and distilled is we've got fear and love. And if we can just recognize when our behavior and feelings are being driven by fear, we have a chance to return to love in its purest form, and love not for the mark, not for the personality, but it's the love for the essence, and then to start finding ways to turn that outwards. And that may sound airy-fairy, or I don't know, but I know hope is so powerful inside. And then putting that hope and that love into positive action. And it can be as simple as holding a door open. It can be as simple as helping somebody to write a letter home who has trouble writing or reading. There's so many ways, just being to listen. That's one of the most beautiful things we can do for somebody, I think, is to just hear how hard it is for them today.
Here's a question that, there's a couple million people in prisons and jails, maybe 7 million on some form of paper. Not everyone understands what it's like to give love, feel love, be loved. Love sounds like airy-fairy.
Agreed.
And then you're saying love and fear, and then you say hope, and then you say service. So if I'm sitting on a 2-inch mattress in an 8-foot cell and I was abused by both parents, I was in foster care, I failed in school, I failed in my gang, and now I'm in prison. My gang members don't even say hello to me. Yeah, I've got various people that I try to get some money on my books from. I don't know that I've felt love. I don't know that I have experienced what you're talking about. What is the jump between, yeah, love, right, to holding the door open for somebody or giving somebody a smile or picking up a piece of trash, which is service? How do I get there, Mark? How do I get there if I have no reference point of what love is? I know fear, and I know if I'm fearful, all I got to do is hit somebody, show force, and then I'm not afraid anymore. Where's the jump? How do I do that?
I don't know that there's a jump. I think you're talking about generational trauma. And when we're in trauma, we're in that swirl, in a tangle. And first of all, I'm sorry.
Are you getting messages?
Yeah, I'm trying to shut it off. There we go. In inside the trauma of all that abuse and isolation and disconnection, it's hard to quote unquote make the leap to service. So I think finding even one person you can talk to a little, that isn't judgmental, that isn't trying to get something from you. And the other is beginning to find ways to self-comfort, even if that sounds airy-fairy. It could be as simple as belly breathing, or finding a meditation that works for you. And the recognition, just the beginning to witness, I'm not my thoughts, and that's a hard one. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm that which is witnessing my body, my emotions. I'm not any of those things. This is tricky, especially when we're traumatized and our nervous system is thrust. And I've tried every kind of therapy. I've done, you name it, I've done it all. And getting out of our heads is the beginning of being able to look out there and not make it about my pain, not to diminish anybody's pain. But being wrapped in the pain is endless suffering is what we get for focusing on how unfair my life is, how terrible this is, how much I hurt, how bad my parents were, how mean everybody is. All that might be true, but I need to find a way to begin to step out of it. And so I know for me, finding little steps. One of the beautiful programs in prison right now are the dog programs. What a simple way to get out of your own head and build empathy and the comfort of just petting a dog. Oh my gosh. And focusing on, this dog needs to be fed. This dog needs to pee. This dog needs to drink water. I've had men say to me, oh my gosh, I thought I knew what it was to be a parent, but I was never really a parent. But now that I'm looking after this dog, I'm worried about the, and all of a sudden he goes, I have such respect and appreciation for what it means to be a parent. So there's no one way, I think, to get out of our trauma, our agony, our anguish. For me, it's been a lot of work. It's an ongoing process.
I prefaced our conversation with, I think we need another conversation. And as we come to the close of our time together today, I really want to maybe dive deeper into I loved your analogy of being, wrapped in the trauma. It feels that way to so many of our students. I received a letter yesterday where the man wrote and said, I will be honest with you. I was wrapped in so much anger. I was going to hurt someone really badly. And then I remembered I am the boss of my brain, and that was enough to change the course. probably changed the course of his life. You know, who knows what would have happened. So I really want to go a little bit deeper into being wrapped with trauma and how to find those moments, like you said, listening or talking or so. So I really, really hope that we get another time together where we don't just talk about navigating things, but we really go through some processes. I can layer in the GOGI Life tool that fits the process that you are teaching through Pathways to Kinship. So if that works for you, I would love to have you back on again.
Be a privilege.
Okay, and we have just a couple minutes for you to send out some shout outs or some messages to some of your students, some of your leaders, some of our GOGI leaders. You did mention one of our GOGI coaches after 30
Chris.
years. Yes, he's coming home. So feel free to do some shout outs to any staff or a warden that's supportive or your students or anything. This is your
I
time.
got to say hey to Kevin Tran, who's a tremendous leader inside. Kevin, thank you for all that you do. And, there's such a good group. And if I next time I'll do a better shout out, because not enough. My old brain is not booting up enough of the people who are making such a difference. But just know that just because I didn't mention you, you are appreciated.
Brilliant. And I look forward I'm going to take a glimpse of your course that's on the tablets. I want to see what that's about. And for all the GOGI students, I really, really want you to dive into Pathways to Kinship and do that course, get that certificate, get that new neurological expansion on how to utilize your GOGI Life tools with a couple of other ways and pathways to doing that. All right,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I so appreciate your time today, and we will get it on the schedule to do another one more about that blanket of trauma and how we can walk away from it and start living a life of service.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you very much.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. Hopefully you are as inspired as I am with the stories about GOGI, the GOGI Life tools, and the GOGI culture that seems to be growing on its own, proving that those individuals who we once thought were the problem are actually the solution. So tune into the next episode. I'm happy to have you as part of our GOGI family.
GOGI told me this, I got the tools to live by. GOGI, GOGI. GOGI told me this, I got the tools